Chapter 33 Fancy's Fool Part 1 Pat met him for the first time at the Dramatic Club's exclusive dance in the Queen's Auditorium, by which they celebrated the successful presentation of their play, Ladies in Waiting. Pat had been one of the ladies, and had been voted exceptionally good, although in certain vivid scenes she could never look passionate enough to satisfy an exacting director. "How can anyone look passionate with a cute nose?" she would ask him pathetically. In the end she looked impish and elusive, which seemed to take just as well with the audience. He came up to her and told her that he was going to dance with her. He never asked a girl to dance or drive with him. He simply told her that she was going to do it. That, said the Queen's girls, was his line. It seemed to be a popular one, though the girls, he didn't notice, talked contemptuously of caveman stuff. "I've been wondering all the evening who you were," he told her. "Couldn't you have found out?" asked Pat. "Perhaps, but I wanted to find out from yourself alone. We are going to be the sun porch presently to see if the moon is rising properly, and then we can discover who we are." Pat discovered that he was Lester Conway, and that he was in his third year at Queen's, but had just come back to college after an absence caused by pneumonia. She also discovered that his home was in Summerside. "I know you're thinking just what I'm thinking," he said gravely, "that we have been living 10 miles apart all our lives and have never met till now." His tone implied that all their lives had been terribly wasted, but then everything he said seemed to have some special significance, and he had a way of leaning towards you that shut out all the rest of the world. "What an escape I've had! I was so bored with the whole affair that I was just going to go when you happened. I saw you coming downstairs, and ever since that moment I've been afraid to look away for fear you'd disappear." "Do you say that to every girl half an hour after you've met her?" demanded Pat, hoping that the sound of her voice would keep him from hearing how her heart was thumping. "I've never said it to any girl before, and I think you know that. And I think you've been waiting for me, haven't you?" Pat was of the opinion that she had, but she had enough silver bush sense to keep her from saying so. A lovely color was staining her cheeks. Her French, English, Scottish, Irish, Quaker blood was running like quicksilver through her veins. Yes, this was love. No nonsense this time about your knees shaking. No emotional thrills, just a deep, quiet conviction that you had met your fate, someone you could follow to the world's end, beyond its utmost purple rim, deep into the dying day. He told her he was going to drive her home, and did, through a night drenched with moonlight. He told her that he was going to see her soon again. "This wonderful day has come and gone, but there will be another tomorrow," he said, dropping his voice and whispering the final word confidently as he announced this remarkable fact. Pat thought she was getting very sensible because she slept quite well that night, after she once got to sleep. It was speedily an item of college gossip that Lester Conway and Pat Gardner had a terrible case on each other. It was a matter of speculation what particular brand of magic she had used, for Lester Conway had never really fallen for any girl before, though he had played around with several. He was a dark lover. Pat felt that she could never bear a fair man again, remembering Harris Jemuel's golden locks. He was not especially good-looking, but Pat knew he had got far beyond the stage of admiring movie stars. He was distinguished-looking, with that faint, mysterious scowl. Lester thought he looked more interesting when he was scowling, like Lara and those fellows. His psychology was sound. Whenever a girl met him, she wondered what he looked like when he smiled, and tried to find out. He was appallingly clever. There was nothing he couldn't do. He danced and skated and footballed and hockeyed and tennised and sang and acted and played the ukulele and drew. He had designed the last cover for The Lantern. Very futuristic, that drawing was. And in the February number he had a poem, To a Wild Blue Violet, containing some daring lines in spite of its Victorian title. It was unsigned, and speculation was rife as to who had written it and who the wild blue violet was. Pat knew. It speaks volumes for her condition of heart and mind that she didn't see anything comical in being called a blue violet. If she had been sane, she would have known that a brown and orange marigold was more in her line. She was, in spite of her infatuation, a bit surprised to find that Lester could write poetry. She had faintly and reluctantly suspected that he wouldn't know poetry when he saw it. But A Wild Blue Violet was free verse. Everything else, Lester told her, was outmoded. The tyranny of rhyme was ended forever. She would never have dared let him know after that that she had bought a second-hand volume called Poems of Passion and underlined half of them. I shall be dust when my heart forgets, she underlined twice. She was horribly afraid she wasn't half clever enough for him. He completely flabbergasted her one evening by a casual reference to the Einstein theory, looking at her sideways to see if she were properly impressed. Pat didn't know anything about the Einstein theory. She did not suspect that neither did he, and spent much of the night writhing over her ignorance. What must he think of her? She went to the public library and tried to read up about it, but it made her head ache and she was unhappy until the next evening, when Lester told her she was as wonderful as a new-mooned April evening. I'd like to know if you said that because it just came into your head or if you made it up last night, said Pat. Her tongue was always her own, whatever her heart might be. But she was happy again in spite of Einstein. Lester really did not pay many compliments, so one prized it when he did. Not like Harris Hines, whose line had evidently been to say something flattering whenever he opened his mouth. Judy had always said he must have kissed the Blarney Stone. How wraith-like Harris seemed now, beside Lester's scowls and commands. To think she had ever fancied she cared for him. Mere schoolgirl infatuation, calf love. He had so little appreciation of the beautiful. Poor fellow. She recalled pointing out the Hill of the Mist to him one moonlit winter night, and he had said admiringly that it looked like a frosted cake. Poor Harris. And poor Hilary. He had had to retire into his corner again. No more evenings in the park, no more rambles together. Even the weekend walks did not often come his way now. The car roads held, and Lester drove her home in his little red roadster. He was the only boy at Queen's who had his own car. There was no pea soup in Judy's kitchen for him, and Pat almost prayed that he wouldn't notice the terrible crack in the dining-room ceiling. Part 2. It worried Pat a little that Judy didn't have much of a mind to him. Not that she ever said so. It was what she didn't say, and her tone when Pat told her he was one of the Summerside Conways, Lester B. Conway. Oh, it do be a noble name. And is it any secret what the B do be standing for? Not Bartholomew B. any chance? B stands for Branchley, said Pat shortly. His mother was one of the Holmburn Branchleys. Sure, I do be knowing them all. Conways and Branchleys. His mother used to visit here afore old Conway made his pile. She was rale humble then. Many's the time I've wiped your Lester's little nose for him when he was knee-high to a toad. Howsomever, concluded Judy loftily, it's likely the matter is too high for me. Money makes the matter go, and it's cute you are one, I'm thinking. Judy was really impossible. To insinuate that she, Patricia Gardner, had picked out Lester Conway because he had money. She should know me better, thought Pat indignantly. But She felt the lack of Judy. If darling Betts were only alive, she would have understood. What a comfort it would have been to talk over her problems with Betts. For there were problems. For instance, Lester had told her she was to marry him right away as soon as college closed. There was no sense in waiting. He was going right into business with his dad. This was simply ridiculous. Of course, some day, but she wasn't going to even think of getting married for years yet. She must teach school and help them at home, reshingle and repaint Silverbush, get a hardwood floor in the dining room, a brass knocker for the front door, pay for Cuddles' music lessons. Lester just laughed at this the night of the Saturday Satellites Easter dance. "You are too lovely, Pat, to be wasted any longer on a shabby, obscure old farm like Silverbush," he said. A little madness came over Pat. The very soul of her was aflame. "Don't ever speak to me again, Lester Conway," she said, each word falling like a tinkling drop of icy water on a cold stone. "Why, what have I done?" said Lester in genuine amazement. That made it worse. If anything could make it worse. He didn't realize at all what he had done. Pat turned her back on him and flew upstairs. To get her wraps was the work of a minute. To slip down the back stairs and through the side hall another minute. Then out and back to Linden Avenue. The bite and tang of the cold air seemed to increase her anger. Patricia Gardner of Silverbush had never in all her life been so furious. Lester came down the next evening, looking more Lara-like than ever. He ignored the incident. He thought that would be the best policy, and told her she was going with him to the Easter prom. "Thank you, I'm not," said Pat, "and please don't waste any more of those charming scowls on me. When I tell anybody I'm through with him, I'm through." When Pat said anything in a certain way, she was believed. "Of all the fickle girls," said Lester, just like Harris. Men were so tiresomely alike. "I was born in moonlight, they tell me," said Pat coolly, "so I'm naturally changeable. No one can insult Silverbush in my hearing, and I'm tired, very tired of taking orders from you." The Conway temper Judy could have told you a few things about it flared up.
"Oh, well, if you're going off the deep end about it," he said nastily. "Anyway, I just began going about with you to put a spook in Hilary Gordon's wheel."
She was glad he had said that. He had set her free. She had been hating him so bitterly that her hate had made her as much of a prisoner as love had. Now he had simply ceased to exist. "I've heard Judy use a phrase," said Pat to herself after he had flung away, scowling for once in real earnest. "Fancy's fool. Well, I've been Fancy's fool, and that's that." Part 3. It was a good while before she could talk the whole thing over with Judy. Now Judy sympathized and understood. "Oh, Patsy dear, I never did be liking your taking up with the Conway, not even if his pockets were lined with gold. Gentleman Tom didn't like him. There was something in that cat's eye whenever he saw him, and he was always a bit too lordly for me taste, Patsy. A man should be a bit humble, like, when he's courting, for if he isn't, when will he be? I'm asking you." "I can never forgive him for making fun of Silverbush, Judy."
Making fun of Silverbush, was he? Oh, if you had seen the little shack his father was raised in, with the stovepipe sticking out of its roof. Sure, and the Conways were the scrapings of the pot in them days, and the temper of the old man. One time he wasn't after liking the colour of a new petticoat his wife did be buying. It was green when he wanted purple. He did be taking it up to the attic of his grand house in Summerside and firing it out of the windy. It caught on the top of a big poplar in the back of the house, and there it did be hanging all the rest of the summer. When the wind filled it out was twice proper show. The folks did be calling it the Conway flag. Old Conway couldn't get it down because the popple was really in Ned Orley's lot, and Ned and him were bad friends, and Ned wouldn't be letting anyone get at the tree. He said he was a better Irishman than old Conway, and liked a bit of raal paddy grain in his landscape.
Lester admits his father was a self-made man, Judy.
Oh, oh, that would be a very pretty story if it was a true one. Old Conway didn't be making himself. The good man above attended to that, and he made his pile out of a grain and feed store. But I'm saying for him, he wasn't skim milk like his brother Jim. He was the miser now. Take out the lamp, says he when he was dying. A candle do be good enough to die by. Oh, oh, there do be some queer people in the world, conceded Judy.
As for me poor Lester, they tell me he's a raal downhearted now that his temper fit do be over. I'm afraid it's ye that do be the Lutheran creature, Patsy. He did be thinking ye were raal fond of him. Of course I admit I was a perfect idiot, Judy, but I'm cured. I'll never fall in love again, if I can help it, she added candidly.
Oh, oh, why not, me jewel? Laughed Judy. As your Aunt Hazel used to say, it's a bit of fun in a dull life. Only don't be carrying it too far and breaking hearts, even of the Conways. There do be big differences between falling in love and loving, Patsy.
How do you know all this, Judy? Were you ever in love? She said impudently.
Judy chuckled. One can be learning a lot by observation, she remarked.
But Judy, how can one tell the difference between loving and being in love?
It do be taking some experience, acknowledged Judy.
Pat burned poems of passion, but when she came across the line, "Spilt water from a broken shard" in one of Carmen's poems, she underlined it. That was all love really was anyway. She went to the Easter prom with Hilary.
Poor Jingle, said Judy to Gentleman Tom. That does be twice it, if she gets over the third time.